Welcome, film industry professionals, film buffs, and aspiring filmmakers. I'm your host, Fernando Guillen, and our lovely co-host, Dana de la Camera. This is the Cinema Pathway TV show, presented by Paradoxical Films and brought to you by Cinevideotech. Join us on this journey behind the camera and, most importantly, beyond what we know about cinema and the craft of filmmaking and all its mysteries. So please, take a seat, grab a soda and some popcorn, and join us on this cinema road together, because we are the Cinema Pathway TV show. Welcome to the Cinema Pathway TV show. I am your host, Fernando Guillen, and today we want to welcome you to our new episode.
Do you think that has an influence on movies that are nominated for awards and they're not credited enough for the people that actually are behind the movie, except from like the director, actors, producers?
No, yeah, there's a lot
because there's a lot of people behind those movies, man, that are not.
No, you see it in the credits at the end, but to get awards and that stuff for it, it's not.
But when you think about it, how many people stay after the credits when they see a movie?
I do.
Me too, but
from the beginning of time.
But
it's just because I want to see if I know these people, and I go, oh, I know that guy, and I call him up, and I go, I loved your movie.
Exactly, you know? But how many people do that? Not many.
Not many, and not many people know about all the different positions on a job.
A lot of the percentage in film sets is patience.
Well,
just
I call it hurry up and wait. So when you first show up, you got a burn rate. So if you were to calculate how much money you're spending per minute, there's a clock ticking.
Yeah.
And they have scheduled us to film, let's say, 12 hours. Well, after you go past 12 hours, you're in overtime. And depending
100%.
on how long you go, for the next day's call, you might go into forced call, or you might get into a forced turnaround, because normally SAG actors and certain crew members need a certain amount of hours offset before they come back. If they're brought back earlier, there's money compensations for that. You know, you're coming in at time and a half, or you're coming in at double time. You know, the money can be spending.
I only said that I love food because I do, and I've been called a foodie in the past. So
yeah, well, so
I'm always there
in my world. Here's where I've put it together: is they have craft service and they have food on set. A lot of times it's not the best. And if you're trying to be health conscious, cheap food is not good food, but it's cheap, especially when you're going to feed an army of people. I don't rely on anything from production. I don't expect anything from production. If it's given to me and I choose for it, it's a good thing. Otherwise, I bring all my own stuff. I make my own food. I bring my own craft service. I have my own cooler, just like if I was going to go to the beach with my friends. Instead, I'm going to the beach to film something. I'm not going to be mad at production for not having bottled water with ice in a cooler when I'm sweating and dripping. I rather just go, no problem, I can go to my own cooler and get it. Or don't worry, I'm not going to make you get special food because I'm a vegan. I'm going to bring my own things that I want.
Funny you say that, man, because I was fed pepperoni pizza today, and I was hoping for veggies.
Yeah.
And I don't have control over that.
Yeah, no.
Because I have some boiled eggs.
What you do if you bring it from home, you have control. You put it in your car.
But I love them. I love them bastards.
No, there's on the bigger budget things, they'll have a catering service that's amazing, and you'll have 5 different meals that you could choose from.
If you laugh, you actually knew about it.
Oh yeah, no, I've been on sets that they brought out
you
chips.
You knew it.
We got
man.
Lay's potato chips and some bottled water that's on the ground that doesn't even have a cooler for it, and it's I always thought that if you make the experience with the people that you're with, at least try to take care of them and either 100%. Feed them well or understand the effort that they're putting in, because Grip and Electric busts their ass. They're moving heavy stuff. The sandbag cart's over 1,000 pounds, and you got to move that all around, and they're picking up and everything. They're going to want.
Those guys could have been power lifters.
They want,
sure.
And then they want something that's cold to drink, or something that's something to snack, because they feel like they're, these are things that I would say don't rely completely on that's going to be taken care of. If you have special needs or you have special wants, just go to Publix or go to some store and buy it yourself, and you don't get an attitude, because an attitude on a set, it's really hard, because you're dealing with a lot of people times that they don't even know each other. and you are meeting them for the first time, and it's like the first date.
And it only lasts like 12 hours.
Right.
Maybe 48.
Maybe.
But
And
I love it when they ask, like, are you allergic to something? I'll be like,
yeah.
Masago, maybe.
Yeah.
So what would you like to eat? Some shrimp.
Yeah, what would you like to eat?
Some
Stone crabs
sashimi.
and some lobster.
You know what I mean? Why not?
No, but that's
I mean, you're asking.
so what you're going to get what you're going to get on second meal is going to be a pizza, or you're going to get sandwiches from Publix, or
whoa.
because they don't necessarily got to give you
those sandwiches from Publix, man. They're something else.
Well,
I mean,
if you're on your third meal and that's all you have, I guess. But sometimes when you want to sit down for 30 minutes and eat
you go at
something,
8:00 in the morning, it's like
you want to eat something hot.
No, you're not gonna have it.
You're not gonna
find it. No way. When you're saying about being in tune with somebody else's idea at the beginning as a filmmaker, what's your best suggestion for the upcoming filmmakers? Like, do they take that personal? How you grow a thick skin? Because in my experience,
you can't take it personal.
Because in my experience as an actor, sometimes when you're
It's
in acting class, like, like they tell you, like, okay, I like this about you.
Mm-hmm.
I like this.
Oh no,
this
they
and
pick you
that.
apart.
And yeah,
I don't like your nose. Your eyebrows are too big.
It's just
you have a weird accent. You're a little bit too fat. No, you're a little bit too thin.
Yeah.
No, you're not really the thing I'm really looking for.
Exactly.
Oh,
so, like, as a filmmaker, does that play a part as the same way as an actress does? Or
so if like here's the funny thing is, so back in the day when I was a little kid, my first experiences like before 5.
Okay.
5, around 4, 5, 6, and 7. 6. My father was dating a renowned casting director in town, D. Miller Castings.
D. Miller.
And they were
looking out for you.
And they were a team. And D had a son, Tommy, and my father had me. And at that early age, they're throwing us in commercials. So there's somewhere floating out there on the internet a Yoo-Hoo commercial that I'm in as an actor. Also Double Mint Gum. I was in that, and then later on, I actually got a SAT card, but I didn't follow it because
a SAT card.
Yeah, because
you know how hard is that?
I know
that
it wasn't, and I didn't mean to do it. It wasn't my thing. It was like something that, at the time, the Fontainebleau Hotel had a mural that looked like a waterfall, and we were doing a Coors commercial where they wanted
good old days.
They wanted to see somebody as extreme sports rappelling off that building. So there was a thing, and we were wearing Coors shirts. So I spent time, since I'm a rock climber, and I do other things, like my passions are rock climbing and rollerblading and martial arts.
Still do that, right?
Oh yeah, I still do it. And I was doing Chinese Kung Fu since I was a little kid.
So if you're a director, like somebody just
I could take you apart and kick you in the head, probably. But I try to resist from that job.
You go into Mortal Kombat.
No, but I could. So the thing is I made rigs that I could rappel with the camera, or I could skate with the camera. And when the actors came, they went to get in the harness, and they went, I'm not going to do this. They were scared because we were 100 feet up on the side of the Fontainebleau, and you had to rappel, for the next, half the day of doing this.
How did this transition to that? Because I see a lot of like wide shots, which is obviously shot from a drone.
Yes, drone.
And
you got
back
drones
in the
these
day,
days.
it was
no,
like,
you
got a huge helicopter with a camera attached to it.
Well, like this camera that's sitting in the front here, this is an Arri 2C that actually would be many times used for the small camera to be handheld. I mean, there's certain movies that did, like because this is the camera before, and it's a big pig. We're filming everything in digital, and it's a digital world, but there's still, celluloid. Kodak is still around, and there's a certain way of film stocks, and then using 16 and 35 and even 65 millimeter. So when it came down to doing that rappelling thing, when the actors came over, they said no, and there's a lot of money. We had cranes, we had film cameras, we had like 4 cameras, and then the director looked at me and says, "You go into makeup and wardrobe." And then the person I was doing the rigging with, his name is Romeo Tirone. He's actually an ASC cameraman that's a friend of mine that came down to just help me rig it, and then he gets now in wardrobe, and then now we're rappelling as the actor down. And we were doing it the normal way where you go backwards, but then the camera only sees your butt. So they said, "Can you put the harness on backwards and come down face first?" And it was like, they call that Australian style. So I was like, sure.
Dude, what was your first experience with that?
Oh, I was fine. But then Romeo looked at me and goes, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. But by that SAG card that we got, I mean, with the residuals, I got paid something like over the span of a couple of years, almost 30 grand.
But this is like early 2000s or like...
Yeah. This was like, when before the introduction of HD.
Internet. Before internet?
I'd have to check my thing because I am a generation before the internet. I was that kid that drank out of the garden hose. And
dude.
I rode my bicycle everywhere.
I mean, you seems like such an interesting person, man. Like, what was the toughest film you ever worked at?
Oh, I was telling the story the other day is a few times, the first few times you get fired are the ones that hurt the most. So, you think you're a certain way and then you're on some set and then somebody comes up to you and says, for one reason or another, you're fired. And that first time I did, because I had worked in a rental house for so many years and gone out to work in second, I was working on Miami Vice. The first time I pulled focus was on the TV show Miami Vice. And I was
Miami Vice, folks.
I was 15, I think I was. And then
15?
And the cameraman looked at me and said, you haven't been doing this long. I go, no, but what are we doing? He goes, well, that Ferrari is going to come across here really fast and then we're going to pan with it and you got to get your focus marks. And I was like, wow, okay. And, so that was sort of like my intro to...
Did you handle it or were you
I got it.
You were just like, oh, I'll just wing it?
No, well, sometimes as a camera assistant, these days, camera assistants got it pretty good because they can look at an HD screen in another room and do it remotely and all that. And in our day, you would have, like you see here, a follow focus on there and a human that has to touch that. You're going to operate and this guy has to keep it in focus and do all the zooming and all the technical stuff and reload the camera. That was my thing. I was a geekhead. So I was really good at taking these cameras apart and fixing them. So my dad would say, I'm not going to send you to school. I'm going to send you to the factory. Because if I invest into somebody else in my company, then at some point they're going to go and work for the competition and I lose a guy and now I'm back to zero. You're my son. You're not going to go anywhere.
Of course.
So I'm going to send you to Aeroflex. I'm going to send you to Movie Cam. I'm going to send you to Zeist. I'm going to send you to Cook. I'm going to send you to Panavision. I'm going to send you to Fisher and Chapman and all these places.
How was your experience in all that?
I just loved it because I'm in a teenager. I haven't even turned 20 yet. And I'm in these, European countries and these guys that are like 70 years old, technicians are teaching me.
Dude, so what was your first Hollywood film experience? Because like I mean, when you're talking about European countries, I'm thinking, here's my take. Like I'm thinking Ronin.
Oh yeah.
James Bond.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Like spies movies, post-Cold War stuff kind of thing. And like, I've always been interested in that.
One of the in my IMDb, one of the first movies I was in, and I was still in high school, was called Mosquito Coast. And that was with Harrison Ford, where he brought ice to the natives. That was the story about how he made refrigeration to bring it to the natives. So it starts off with a giant, huge block of ice. And then by the time he gets to the jungle, it opens up and it's an ice cube and he puts it in a glass. I think John Seal was doing that. And it was in Belize. So we were in the jungles of Belize and I was a technician on that where I sat on the truck and since we were a Panavision agent, I was Pana certified. They gave me like a certificate of accomplishment, so I knew the cameras very well.
Was that before Star Wars or?
I think it was after, because I think.
So he was a huge star after.
Oh yeah, no, and he was a really cool guy too. I mean, he knew everybody's name. I sat down at lunch right next to him, and we would just talk like we're talking right now.
Super humble
guy, super great guy. Like there's certain people that I've worked with that are actors that are not just actors. I mean, they're directors. They know the process. They know how to film edit. They knew how to do certain lighting. I mean, one of the ones that I could tell you was Burt Reynolds. He was, he has his, had his place up in Jupiter, and we did parts of Burt's movies, and I developed a relationship with him that. In different times of the years, we would see each other and work together.
We'll be right back with our crafting cinematic vision and lighting engineer, Egon Stephan Jr.
Welcome to Tell Your Story. It is a masterclass hands-on workshop that is presented by Cinevideotech and brought to you by Paradoxical Films. crafting, cinematic vision, and lighting engineers with the instructor, Mr. Egon Stephan Jr. You will learn how to work with actual film, 16mm, Super 16mm, 35mm, and film cameras. In addition, how to load them and change magazines. Furthermore, the workshop will prepare you on how and what it takes to work on set as a first or second assistant camera, the fundamentals of lighting, and the pathway to becoming a director of photography. Furthermore, coming soon, Unveiling the Artistry, a mastering of makeup techniques with the uber-talented special effects makeup artist, Bianca Graciani. She will enrich your knowledge and techniques with professional tools that are implemented in the film industry, commercials, and more. For information about the classes and updates, everything will be posted on our website at www.paradoxicalfilms.com/tellyourstory.
Welcome back, Cinema Pathway enthusiasts. It's really good for you to know about cinematography. It makes your job easier. Just like if you're a director and you've taken acting classes, you know how to communicate with the actors and actresses in terms of like how the process is.
Yeah.
You know, in my experience, I've worked with many directors in theater and film where they are very focused on a technical aspect, but when it comes to like directing the actors, I'm not saying that's a general idea, folks. I'm just saying that there could be more to it in terms of like developing the scene.
Person, and you have to have one vision. So if you're going to be the director looking at that monitor, as an actor, you got to sell it so much that the director believes it. I mean, if you're watching these takes and it's not really hitting what he's looking for, then it's going to be that art to try to find the performance with, sometimes there's technical issues where the actor did it perfectly, but now you're out of focus. Or the dolly bumped, or the light went out in the middle of the take. You know, these sort of things, and you have to do it again. You know, so when the discipline of doing something on, let's say, film cameras versus digital, which is a big thing, is you did a lot of rehearsals. First of all, the director would take the actor, bring it out to the set, and the set is theirs for the moment. Everybody backs off. And then you work out your moves, you work out your dialogue. You're sort of like doing blocking of what's happening. Now, when they leave to walk away, you bring in a second team of stand-ins, and now you light, set the camera up, do the moves, get all that down until it's all really nice and working good, and then you bring it back out again, and there's going to be some little tweaks and changes. That's something that used to be done. A lot of times now with digital, it's more like we just shoot a lot of it, and then we just roll into the next take and the next take, and sometimes it's not being like disciplined that way to let's break, let's get motivated again. And you know, it's a process.
How do you feel about between the digital aspect, the old school aspect? You have to go through rehearsals and choose what's the best mood for the scene.
Yeah.
Because it's a process. It is a process, you know, like I can tell my director is not very happy, but it's okay. I might need an acting coach. But no. I'm just saying because it's very interesting to know about cinematography. I would like for our viewers to know, what's your take on it? Like,
it's
the
a journey.
Old school method, you know.
I would say that this is not, you don't arrive at anything yet. This is a journey that you have to go through. And the more you do it, and the more you feel comfortable with doing it, you start better at your craft. When I watch a movie, I'm my worst critic because
so am I.
I can watch the movie and I can already tell you almost what kind of lenses you used, what version of camera you used. And there's certain things that, because I've been around it so much, that I will watch the movie first as a normal person that has no experience in the film industry to see if the director and the story moves me. Then when it does, I go back and I watch it again and again, and I take it apart and I try to see what I loved about it. My references will be like, I have thousands of DVDs and movies that I watch over and over again, criteria collections of things and how they made certain things even back before there was even video. So that's my study. I'll study directors and how they do what they do. And some of the directors I used to study and look up to, I had the chance of working with them, which is really, really great.
So like to you, if I would come up to you with a screenplay, would you be more focused on the technical aspect or the actual story?
The first part of me reading it would be the story. And then since I worked in a rental house so many years and still do, and I have a rental house, it would be that I have to match the equipment to the story that you're going to be using that then matches the budget with the producer, which is this little seesaw thing happening because they say, I want a Technicrane, and that's like going to be, $5,000 for the day. And it's like, we don't have the money for the Technicrane, but you want to get this shot. So we have to do it in a variant way. What's the cheapest way or what's a more affordable way to do it? And then my technical aspect of trying to know the progression of all cameras and lenses and digital and film and what came out is what I rely on to try to give you something close to or better than what you were expecting. So I have to, right after a scout, then the producer's going to say, well, I need a list. And I can't give you a list until I go on a scout because I don't know what we're doing yet until we see the location. And when I see the location, I take my measurements and I know, okay, this is all the items that we're going to have to get from the rental house. These are all the, I've worked enough with my father's place. We have lighting, grip, camera, and trucks and generators.
And when you give that diagnosis, like, is it always taken professionally or personal?
Some people that have experience, they appreciate that because they needed some guidance, and some people, they want to figure it out themselves. So I don't push my agenda. I just say, great, whatever way you want to do it. And then if it doesn't work out properly, then they might say, okay, how do we do this shot, or how do we get this piece of equipment?
So you grow that thick skin from that experience?
Yeah. Well, when I was back to the thing of being in those commercials, I went on a few commercials after that, and I didn't want to do that because I was not my thing, because I was in behind the camera, not in front. But when you said that they're going to pick you apart and everything like that, I went on a few castings and I went, I kind of don't really like this, because I can look like an ogre.
Man,
as long as I can make a film really good, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to be on camera.
I got a question for you, and it's a question for all of you want to be filmmakers, regardless of your region. What is it that they don't tell you in film school?
A lot of things, because some of the people that teach in film schools, the last time if they were ever on set might be 20 years ago. The world is constantly changing. We have lights. I have tungsten lights that 2 or 3 people have to lift it up. It's 24Ks. Now you have aperture lights of LEDs. You have Astera lights. You have Nan lights. You have these little ones that we got off of Amazon. Those are all different ways.
All right, folks, take a look.
Since the beginning, stories were told by candlelight. As man began to harness and control light, an art was developed, the balance of light and shadow. Where you place the light in conjunction with the camera angle can convey different emotions. The director, cinematographer, and gaffer decide the style and values of each scene to accomplish a director's vision. Light can be direct, bounced, shot through diffusion, reflected, hard, or soft. From tungsten, halogen, fluorescent, HMI, to LEDs, the DP applies his knowledge to every scene and can visualize what light where to put them to gain maximum photographic effect.
Everything in front of the camera needs to be lit. Here is an example of doing some small tabletop photography with specialty type of light to tell your story. Currently you see here is a microflow KinoFlow kit that has very thin tubes. These have been used to put behind objects, in front of objects, or in very tight places to be into. This is your daylight type of version of this. To maximize this, you can go into a color temperature of tungsten. And then right off to the side here, I have a dado kit. If I turn on this dado kit, I'm able to use this focal spot with an iris. And here we can control the amount of light to a pinpoint of how we like it. These are small little kits that you can use to put anywhere, inside of cars, inside of very tight places to go into. In front of you are some of the DP's tools of the trade. One of the most important things that he has to have would be a light meter. This particular light meter is an incident meter and a spot meter. We have meters that measure color temperature. We have meters that measure light frequencies. We have meters that read hertz. We even have meters that reads foot candles. Some of the other things of looking through light would be a contrast viewing glass to be able to see the contrast of your scene. We also have a viewing glass for working with visual effects, for doing green screen and blue screen. When trying to focus in a very powerful light or looking at the sun, we use a welding glass to be able to look straight in and be able to adjust and guide where the light beam needs to be. Some things that we do also is use viewfinders. That way we can go onto location with whatever director we're with, and then you can pick your format and your frame and you can line up your shots. This is a simple standalone version. They also do make ones that are PL mount that you can use your real lenses and go and test it with. You can never have enough meters. Here's also some specialty lightings. These particular ones are called the STRIPTEASE. These are Titan tubes that are battery powered. They are controlled RGB completely by an app from your tablet or your iPhone. We can independently choose the effect of each light. Some of the things that it will do, as you can see, we have a rainbow effect. We have a water effect, a green pulse effect. We can be full saturation of red, of any particular color on the rainbow that we choose to pick. You can do chase effects. You can do flashes, paparazzi, fire, police, fireworks, television. It is infinitely adjustable. You can also program these to be able to last the battery for as long as you're going to be shooting. So if you're going to know that you need illumination for, let's say, 6 hours, you can program every light that it will take whatever battery power it has and run it to that 6 hours before it shuts off. It has anti-theft. If you have this at a place that you're doing a club and somebody decides to take it or move it or change it, it'll go into a lock mode, start giving a siren and start blinking so you can't actually turn it off, because it's, even if you try to turn it off, it won't turn off. So these are really, these lights are endless possibilities. Before, when we were using these lights that are tungsten lights and some of the other ones, we would be using swatches. Every swatch would be a color this is particular Roscoe, Lee. These was something that we sat down for hours upon hours picking a color and saying that's the color we're going to be lighting and keying everybody. If that would be the case, we would have to put them on the front of all the different lights that we have. In this case, all of those exact colors, if I go into here, into my programming, you can see that the colors of the rainbow is on here. But I can definitely move my finger and change it, or I can go to pre-programmed of these exact swatches inside here. So if I wanted to go and say Storaro Indigo, that's that color. I don't have to buy that gel. That gel is not very cheap either. If I want to go into, this is a Storaro Yellow. I like the Storaro series. Here's a Storaro Medium Red. Here's a Cyan. So when we're on set and you're trying to mix match and you're using color as a contrast, you want to put colors of lights that are sometimes opposite of each other. You would take an orange and then opposite with a blue. That way you have color contrast. The levels of adjustability for dimming is all by a fingertip. This is the easy button. You can program as many of these as you want. You can put them through a board. You could have hundreds of these and actually have them all do an effect on each one. But like anything else, and what I found out through all my life, one light doesn't do everything. If it did, it'd be like one camera does everything or one lens does everything. You have to match the gear with what you're doing. So in some cases, this is very good. But if you're going to be outside and it's a very bright environment, these won't be as saturated as you think it is. They have to be the hero of the scene to then make it like that. But if I wanted that particular color on that 24K tungsten light, I could put that in front of a frame, and that light will illuminate the whole scene, whether it's nighttime or daytime, and you'll be able to see the color. The modern lights today are RGB controlled, meaning it's infinitely adjustable on the color temperatures. In the old days, when you're trying to put a light with a certain color temperature, you would refer to your swatches. This would be the designed color that you want to go with, matched up for the director and the DP to decide that that was a scene that was going to happen. If I wanted to make these RGB lights controllable to make it a different color, immediately I can just touch it and it will send the signal through Bluetooth and adjust those lights. If I want to add an effect to them, depending on what color effect, how the sequence is, if I'm doing a running car shot and I want to see street lights that come by, I can do it on cue. You have different types of strobe for paparazzi. And in the old days, in order to do that, I would have to take this type of gel, the one that would be picked, and we would buy multiple of it to be able to allow it to be put onto a big light. That way you could cover a scene larger. These battery-powered lights here in broad daylight will not be very strong. They normally are good for certain occasions. Not one light will do everything. Not one camera will film everything. And not one lens will do everything. These are the palettes of the crayon box that we have, that we use to tell our stories. Stay tuned. Coming up next, Rigging and Grit.
Well, Egon, thank you so much. I am totally hooked with your wisdom. If you want to know more about the Paradoxical Films / Tell Your Story, please log into our website and stay tuned to us and the Crafting Cinematic Vision and Lighting Engineer with Egon Stephan Jr. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our partners that helped us make this show possible. Cinevideotech has provided film equipment, training, and rental services inside and outside the United States since 1968. Theatrical Productions offers consulting, productions, and rental services in Central and South America for a wide range of films, advertising, marketing, commercial projects, and more. Art Accelerator is a non-profit organization that helps emerging artists accelerate their careers through film classes and film industry networking events. Back with our Crafting Cinematic Vision and Lighting Engineering, Egon Stephan Jr. What's your, because I have a lot of acquaintances that are really hooked up on AI filmmaking.
Yes, that's the new thing.
And I think it's amazing. I think that there's a lot of opportunities in that. But how do you feel that influences the film industry, acting mostly? Because I know 2 years ago, SAG went into strike because they're so hooked on it, man. And they've shared with me, I'm not going to say any names, but they've shared with me a lot of content that they've been creating. And they're actually going into film school for AI. Do you think that's the future? Do you think that kind of tempers with the craft of filmmaking? What's your take on it, since you've had so much experience with filmmaking and the industry itself?
I would say that, and that's another reason why we got together Paradoxical Films and Freddie to make Tell Your Story and do workshops, is because I still believe that craft of what you do is not been taught a lot in school in these number of past years, because it's all digital and going right to your iPhone or Blackmagic or one of these type of cameras or AI, and you're creating something out of nothing. It's not really teaching the discipline of having to take a physical thing and going do that. So the craft of knowing how to put something together and then executing that is something that I think humans to stay involved in, and there's not really a whole lot of options of getting that one-to-one with somebody so that they can physically do it themselves. I don't need a whole lot more practice. I got a lot of practice. I've been fortunate to be, with my family, with my dad in the business, that this is really like, if you ask me what are the things I know know the film business, and I know martial arts, and I know rock climbing. I mean, these are the things I know because they're my passions, and I do it all the time, whether I have a job or not, and I study and I play with stuff, and I try to learn that. And then when people come to me, they don't have like the answer, and they're trying to figure something out, I encourage them to be as creative as possible, because when the manufacturers make all this equipment, they have their ranges of how they use it. But now you give it to a filmmaker that has no rules. They're going to break every rule. And through breaking those rules that they would say, no, that probably can't work that way, is when you're going to find some magic. It's going to, lightning in a bottle. So there's no real solid rules. There's, you have to, extend yourself beyond of sometimes of what you know. And then the more you know it, then you're getting better at it. And it needs practice. And, AI and electronics and all this with computers, at some point, that's all the future and how everything's going. But they still need somebody to change the battery on the camera. They, if you're going to be on a set, they still need somebody to prep it before and put it in a truck and unload it and set it up and run power.
They still need a human presence.
And you still need that way. And if you only just work on AI, I think the neatest thing before AI would be is the virtual video walls that are coming out. I mean, like in Mandalorian, how they do that kind of work, or Oblivion, where you have a 360 or you have a 180 type of a video wall, and you have lights that are controlled, that you can then perspective. Like in the old days when we did green screen, you'd have to put little tracking marks on there, and the computer would have to track it. Now it's all being done with Unreal Engine, like you're doing video games, and you move the camera, and the background changes.
How do you think that will influence filmmaking in the future? Because, some people might be, and I take responsibility for this comment, like some people might be obtuse to the idea that AI may not be.
Well, the AI that I've seen it's neat and it's cool, but it doesn't sell me yet. So I'm sure in the next couple of years, it's going to only get better. Anything that you find out.
So you think it's like Skynet?
I call it Skynet because,
I call it Skynet
it's
too.
the rise of the machines.
Because, dude, like, yeah, I know, like, at some point.
I'm targeted for termination.
Bro, I'm telling you, the only reason why I'm asking is because, like, I know quite few people that they're really cool artists, and like they're into the film, acting, music industry, and they're so hooked up on AI, man. They go to film school even though they know AI. And it's like, I went to film school a couple of semesters. With my experience as an actor, I've worked with different directors, man.
But how would you feel if you're acting, and then I scan your face and your body, and now
I will go on strike
forever? I'm going to put it in like this whiskey commercial, this baby wipe commercial.
It makes me feel like.
So you're not going to like that.
I'm not going to like that because, like, when I think about it, it's like, like, okay, so I've taken this many workshops, I've done this much experience in theater and like film and whatever, and then like you're just gonna take my face and voice and do whatever.
It has to be regulated, and it hasn't got to that point.
You know what I mean? Like, it's frustrating because like it makes me feel like so like, what have I invested my time on? So
well, the technology is moving so fast. Before, like with some of these cameras back when there was film days before video, you would have one model come out, and maybe 10 years later another model come out. Now with digital, anything, even your phone, every year you got one or two update or a new model that comes out. So the technology, you can't stop that. That's going to be, people want to have it at one point in their brain. Okay, that's going to be that way. And there's going to be the high end of things that are done in filmmaking, and then there's going to be like the independent world is not going to have all that money and those resources that the big guys that are doing like Marvel and those $300 million jobs. They're not going to have that. So, they're going to need things to help them. So far, I've seen with AI assist for editing, it takes that time of editing a lot out that you would normally do it the old way, where it's getting in the way of being an assistant to the person having to spend hours upon hours in a dark room trying to color and cut something, where it can already put something together pretty quickly. Now, to say that it's going to do everything for me, including wiping my butt, I don't believe in any of that because I'm old school. I come from, like I said, drinking out of a garden hose and riding a bicycle.
100%.
So I need tactile things. I need to have things that I can touch and grab and that actually last maybe beyond me.
and understand
And
like the
AI
language
is
of
so
it.
changing so much
Extremely.
without having some type of regulations and some type of rules, that can get way out of control really fast. I mean, I could put you in a porno and it could be you, and you weren't even in that, and it's going to ruin your reputation. So,
and you don't even get rid of you from it. It's
No.
like,
So I would say that,
cock and balls are there. Like
when an actor passes away and they have to skin them in the face and do that.
100%, dude.
Even then, I watched Silent Terminator. I'm looking at that. I'm like,
What are you?
I can see that it's not. I mean,
What are you, Egon? Like, what are you shooting me for?
I
Like,
let him
already
go.
killed the T-1000. What are you?
you need to have some professionals that are going to put rules and regulations on that and make it fair. Because right now it's a little bit unfair on what they can do, and they can abuse that power.
And there's a lot of like lost jobs into that technology
Well, and
because
we don't want to have a machine taking over your job. I mean,
that's why I call it Skynet, because like at the same time, like, I know that I think like 2 years ago, like SAG went into strike because of that. I mean, many issues, but mainly one of those issues was the introduction of AI, where like you can get your face and voice into the industry, where they can produce so many movies with your image and your voice, and you wouldn't get a revenue for that. And at the same time, like a guy in their studio with a computer, it could save so much money producing a film.
like here's where I see things that work good is if you were to get, let's say you want to shoot in Times Square and you want to do your movie in Times Square. Well, you're not going to get the permit or the money enough to be able to do that and
Which
shut it
takes
down.
times. It
So
takes times.
you can build that and take plates of that and then animate that in front and behind the actor, and now you're there. And that's really good because that before we'd have to build sets, huge sets
Now
and
you
everything.
don't.
Now you don't have to build so much sets. You can actually do some foreground elements, and then in the background have it with a video wall of some sort, or projected in such a way that it gives the human eye this illusion that it is that part of the world you're being submerged in. So when it starts looking like TikTok AI, it's like wiggly and squiggly, and it's like it's interesting, and I think that's kind of cool, but we're not at that levels of.
But that's the trick, isn't it? Like, it's for the trained eye.
Yeah.
Because somebody, like when I think about opinions, like, okay, like somebody that watches, I'm just going to give it an example without any personal, belief. Like when somebody sees Fast and Furious 14th, they're into that type of story.
So when
like,
when,
that's the common people that go into the movie theater and watch the movie.
That
and
franchise changed.
yeah,
a
like,
lot.
oh my God, I love it. But like, if you introduce AI, most likely they won't even notice it. Unless you're like a filmmaker, like you're into film, you're into acting, and you see like, oh my God, you know what? If I see Heat with Michael Mann, I love Al Pacino's acting. And if I see The Devil's Advocate, maybe at the end it's kind of like over the top. But, it's because you have an understanding of acting, film, etc. So,
like Michael Mann is a director I really like to work with, and then throughout our history,
dude, I would love to be directed by Michael Mann.
We did
Like,
Ali.
Yeah.
We supplied the movie Ali. We did
Collateral.
Yeah. No. I wasn't on that one. No. In town here, filming.
Oh, go.
Michael Mann, he did Miami Vice. He did Miami Vice, the TV show, and the movie. So we supplied the equipment for the TV show and the movie. So, I also worked on Band of the Hand. When you work under a guy like that.
This is the guy. If you like film, this is the guy.
When you work under a guy
telling
like
you.
that and he's in the room, I mean, he's thinking on a whole nother level.
How is like working with Michael Mann?
Well, he's like working with Oliver Stone. I mean, the guys are like, these are masters at what they do.
Dude.
And they walk around like, Tony and Ridley Scott with little 4x
Black
cards
Hawk Down. He's
with
just like-
drawings.
it's just
and
like-
he's just like making little notes, and he's like, no, okay, I'm going to do that. And then sticking it on the
Chaos is all over them. And they're
But
like,
in their
what? I
head,
don't
it's
want
not
this.
chaos. I mean, they're really good at what they do. And they'll, like, some people will play music at certain times to create an atmosphere of something. And, the way they approach their actors, or the timing of when they're going to film something. Like if you're going to be, like on The Insider, that early morning when he's out there on the phone talking on it, and it's like the sun hadn't even come up yet, but it's got that dusk and dawn kind of looking thing. to make all those choices and to shoot it in that kind of a way with a long lens as if they're far away. Lenses are like your crayons in your box, and cameras are for a cinematographer and a director is, how am I going to portray a certain feeling? And it's going to be with a type of lens and the way you light it.
We'll be right back with our crafting cinematic vision and lighting engineer, Egon Stephan Jr. At Cinema Pathway TV, we are committed to bring value to you and our film community as we explore the craft of filmmaking around the world. Also, visit us online at www.paradoxicalfilms.com/shop, where you can purchase Paradoxical Films and Cinema Pathway gear such as hoodies, t-shirts, hats, stickers, and more. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at cinema_pathway_podcast for behind-the-scenes footage, photos, and more. And welcome back, Cinema Pathway TV people. I am your host, Fernando Guillen, and I am talking to our cinematographer, life chief engineer, Egon Stephan Jr. Egons, based on what you've told me, what are the other projects you are currently working on?
It's never the same twice. It's always something different. That's why you can never have there's not any project that I can do that is exactly one camera, one lens, or one type of lighting. It is always tailor-made for the project and the budget. So, in our business, every light and any way to move the camera or rig a camera is the grip department. You need to have stands that hold the light, and then all sorts of hardware to be able to put a light or take light away from something by putting it in a corner or on a car or a dolly. So when you're doing like moves with a camera, you need Fisher dollies, cranes, jib arms, sliders, and these are ways to move the camera, and the grip department needs to build that. And it's always like heavy things and speed rail and stands and Cardellini's and 8x and 12x12 frames and rigging things up somewhere. So all that kind of happens with the grip department. Grip department, it's like the sinew of the body. It needs to be connective, that everybody uses it. I mean, like right now, this microphone is on a stand. That light's on a stand. Everything has something to be crossing with itself. If you're a camera assistant, you're pulling focus off of a monitor, you're going to have a rolling baby stand. That's a grip. That's in the grip department. The idea. It's not a camera thing; it's a grip thing.
So, what does the film industry look like to you with all this movement of AI and digital film nowadays?
You still use the same grip equipment. No matter how you look at it, it's still that stays consistent. So a C stand that was 100 years ago is going to look just like a C stand today because they made it that it works. The lights are going to change. They're going to become lighter, less expensive, more powerful. But the hardware that the lights and the cameras and everything fits onto, that's still solid from the past.
And what does the future look to you as a cinematographer and an educator with all this new technology and your experience as an old school filmmaker?
I embrace it, and then when somebody says
with love,
this is the next new thing, I say, give it to me for the weekend, and I'm going to see if I can break. And then afterwards, I'll tell you what I think is the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I'm going to take it through all of its paces. Because any manufacturer will say this camera or this lens or this light can do all these special things. But it's not always the truth, because sometimes, like everything now for the future is all needs firmware updates. I mean, on a high-end camera, the camera needs a firmware update. The remote focus needs a firmware update. The transmitter, the Teradek, everything that is attached to that thing is going to have software updates, same firmware updates, just like you have on your phone. When you go back in time, there wasn't any of that stuff. I mean, it was like that stayed the same. You put it in the box, and 20 years later, you pull it out, and you didn't update anything. It still works the same way. There is a little bit of joy that, if I'm given the option and money is not a ticket thing, then I would opt to try to go film, not just because I know it well. It doesn't require that much gack that you're going to put on it, because on a new modern camera, there's so many cables coming out of that thing. It looks like a tentacle, like an octopus. and the battery consumption and the draw it pulls, and it becomes this like almost pterodactyl monster.
It's just like a brain damage.
You can keep it smaller, like the voltage that this camera takes, one battery would last all day. When you use a high-end camera, you need 8 batteries on boards and maybe a couple of 4 block batteries. And it's because there's a power consumption that pulls from that. Some cameras pull a lot, some not as much. So the future, you have to, I would say, don't block yourself off. Open yourself up. Even though that they'll promote this is the next best thing since tissue paper, you should run with it and take it through its paces and go, yeah, it's beautiful, but not in low light. Yeah, it's beautiful, but not in high elevations. Oh, it's beautiful, but not in high humidity. Oh, it's beautiful, and these are, this does well, but this part it doesn't. And when you know the limitations and the ranges of it, you know how to play with it. So it's not going to be like you play with it until you break it. You play with it to its limit, and then you know what you can get out of it because you've practiced with it. So it goes the same way with cameras, lenses, lights, and grip equipment. Grip equipment, you have to have it in your mind that you see something, and let's say the director or the cameraman says, I want a camera here, right here, with exactly this lens and whatever. Now they figure out how to put it there. And, you come up with really smart, ingenious ways of mounting a light or a camera in funky places that you normally wouldn't do, but you have the hardware in the truck to build it. And if you have the imagination and you have the hardware, it just takes you to put it together. Sometimes you'll spend on a big movie days or weeks pre-lighting and pre-rigging before you even film there because they have to build it. You have to, if you're going to be building a set, it still needs sandbags to hold the set. It still needs some stands on the other side to hold it. And the same stand would be also something that holds a flag for the cameraman, or it holds the light that's going to be lighting it. Probably on a set, I would say grip department is the most universal because cameras specialized, lenses are specialized, lighting is kind of specialized, but grip equipment needs to be used by everybody. Makeup department needs grip equipment. Everybody needs something that's probably on the truck.
So guys, take a look.
Being a filmmaker is a collaborative experience. Tell Your Story can teach you how to convey different cinematic techniques to create a visual narrative that can cause diverse emotions in a general audience. Depending on the job, you could require a small army. Planning, preparation, and passion is needed to create a success. Video Village, as we call it, through rain or shine, needs grip help. It is master control that requires solids, floppies, tents, and airflow that allows the creatives to focus clearly on the scene. Among these are a variety of lenses, camera movement, lights, shadow, rig and grip, to name a few. Combining all these tools allow filmmakers to put in the picture a tale that can correspond to a specific genre, such like drama, romance, action, mystery, thriller, horror, and many others. All these ingredients play a very important piece of the story structure to make a movie from beginning to end. Come and join us and tell your story. Rigging and grip is the connective tissue on a set that touches almost every department, from apple boxes to placing a camera on or in something. Grip gear ranges from car rigs, dollies, cranes, frames, rags and flags, stands, and clamps of all types. Practical application of the techniques grips use assists the other creatives to mold and shape light to achieve their look. Cinevideotech and Paradoxical Films join forces to bring you in front of the action by giving you the tools you need to succeed in a real film set or any indie production by industry standards. In our world, you are the star of Tell Your Story. It's coming to you as there are many possibilities to tell your story. That is the only way you can tell. So meet the team and join us to tell your story.
Welcome back, Cinema Pathway enthusiasts, with our Egon Stephan Jr., crafting cinematic vision and lighting engineer. Are you ready for final thoughts?
Absolutely.
We decided segment to get into your human side.
Okay.
So it's just going to be really quick questions. The first thing that comes into your mind, what's your favorite color?
Red.
Your favorite word?
Awesome.
What about your favorite places?
In my Zen room.
Okay. And what's your favorite movie?
Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner.
The original Blade Runner with
The director's cut.
Okay, gotcha.
And maybe Apocalypse Now or Hearts of Darkness or Citizen Kane or Fellini's 8.5
classics.
or Seven Samurai. Like, I have a whole list of the genre of something or of my top picks or my top directors or something like that. And
Gotcha.
so if I have to recreate something, I go, oh, you mean like the split screen in Citizen Kane at that scene? And they'll be like, oh, yeah.
Too bad Gene Hackman died, man.
Yeah, that's horrible.
How you wish to be remembered?
That I was fair.
What do you mean? Like, you think people are tyrant with you?
No, that I'm hard, but I'm fair. You know, I'm demanding, but I'm fair.
You
I
pretty much
don't want to be a bully, but I want to be. If I take on helping somebody, and I care, I might sometimes care more than the person that sits there.
Any words of wisdom you would like to share with the audience, Egon?
You will never be always prepared, but you got to strive for it. When you do something and it's out of your comfort zone, do it anyway, because you might find strength when you cross to the other side. Fear stops a lot of people from doing things.
Well, Egon, thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
For sharing with us a little bit about yourself at the Cinema Pathway TV show. We wish you very much luck in your future projects.
Thank you.
And you always know that you have a space here at the Cinema Pathway TV show.
I love it. You're awesome, man.
Thank you so much.
You're awesome. Thank you, Brent.
You talk for hours and days and weeks. Stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, it's a wrap. Lights out.